Hi everyone! Today I wanted to talk about books. More specifically, my favorite books of this year. I do admit that I'm filming this in early December, and I'll probably read maybe 4 or 5 new books, but if any of them is a new favorite, you'll just see on my Goodreads, and then we can call it good there. I am getting my statistics from this video from Goodreads. I know that I should probably switch to Storygraph, but frankly, I don't have the kind of time or energy for that right now, so um, we're just gonna have to deal with the limited information that I have. So, this year I have read 124 books so far, which sounds like a lot. Like, Claire, why did you read over 120 books? And I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you how. The why is because I had senioritis, and it was a COVID year, so I read a lot of books in April and May when I probably should have been, doing my homework for AP Bio or whatever. The how is that a lot of them aren't full-length novels. I read a lot of plays and novellas. Personally, I really enjoy the quick feeling of getting through a novella and having that full story, but not spending weeks on it. It's really emotionally satisfying for me. I'm a big short story fan, so novellas are like the next step up from that. And I'm a theater student, so I read a lot of plays. Last year, I read 113 books, but I've read more pages last year than I did this year, and that's because I read more plays and novellas this year than last year. I still read a lot of plays last year, but I think fewer novellas. So, 125 books, that's quite a lot. I think that's a lot. I tend to give books 4 or 3-star ratings on Goodreads, unless they're really good or really bad. I only gave one book a 1-star rating this year, which I think is a pretty good track record, and I gave 17 books 5-star reviews. I don't think I'm going to talk about all of them, but I'm going to talk about the ones that I still feel are 5-star reviews, because some of these, like, I read in January, I barely remember reading them, but if they've stuck with me, that I really did like them, then I'm going to share them with you so that maybe you can enjoy them too. So, the first book I rated 5 stars this year was Gideon the Ninth. This was a reread for me. I read Gideon in June of 2020, and it's easily my favorite book series of all time. Gideon the Ninth and Hera the Ninth are just stunning and so exciting. The world building is remarkable, and the characters are so interesting to me. So it was an easy 5-star reread for me. I cannot wait to see how the series plays out. Next, we have The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. I think a lot of people really loved this book this year, and I think that's so valid. I know I read it in like one sitting, which obviously influences my perception of it, because when I read books in 1 or 2 sittings, it's usually because I'm really engrossed in them and I have time to like fulfill that engrossedness, and it's such a satisfying feeling to be so completely immersed in that world. So usually when I read books in 1 or 2 sittings, I do tend to give them higher ratings. I just remember the experience of reading Addie was really fun, and I remember really enjoying the writing style. I remember reading a negative review about the style because it's like poetic for no reason, and I was like, but that's fun! I like that! I'm a poetry fan, why not add in some random bits of poetry? Who cares? Addie Larue is number 2 on my best books of 2021. Not that this is like ordered or anything, like this isn't a ranking list, this is just in the chronological order that I read them, good books sort of thing. The Book of Delights. This book touched me so much. It's a collection of short lyric essays, which are basically like prose poems about nonfiction things, and it's just stunning. It's like a year of the author's life as he chronicles things that bring him joy, things that delight him. And it's so lovely, and it's not necessarily like the lightest book despite the name. Like, there are discussions of some darker topics and themes, but it's such a warm book, and his perspective on the world and on finding like little things to care about, or noticing the way that people show their care towards others is so beautiful to me. It definitely changed my mindset, which is not something I think I can say about a lot of books. Next, we have The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie, which is such a cool book. It's told in second person, which I personally love. I know a lot of people really hate second person, but I'm a big fan of it. I read a bunch of books this year with second person. This, The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, Hair of the Ninth has a lot of second person, and it's so exciting to me every time I read second person. I know that it's kind of gimmicky, but like, I love a good gimmick. Let me enjoy things, okay? It's like this mythic fantasy world with the main character is a god. Favorite parts of this book were the flashbacks to like the beginning of time and humanity, and how the god kind of came into being along with human civilization. I don't think that's super spoilery to say, because obviously that's how gods are made, I think. But it was really beautifully done and very interesting to me. So next we have Magic for Liars by Sarah Galey. Personally, I really like this book for incredibly selfish reasons, and that's because I'm like 80 to 90% sure that they set the magic school in Sinol. I live really close to Sinol. Like my high school was along the road that was mentioned in this book, or like I'm 80% sure, right? Because it was like, oh, they drove over the Oakland Hills, and I'm like, listen, are we having like a telepathy moment here? Do I know exactly what you're talking about? I think I do. I could be completely wrong. I could be just projecting myself onto this book, but like in my mind, this book takes place right next to my hometown, and that makes it so special for me. Um like I said, completely selfish reasons. I also enjoyed it because it's like a grown-up magical school story, and it talks a lot about like insecurities. And as I'm starting to read more adult fantasy, it's really interesting to me how adult fantasy talks about teenagers, and just how adult literature talks about teenagers in general. Because I'm 18, I'm still a teenager, but seeing what non-teenagers think of teenagers has become something that's really fun for me to do, because I'm kind of in an in-between state where I can kind of look at both and be judgy in all the ways possible, which, if that's a teenager thing to say, come at me, but I think it's fun. Guys, if there's one book off this list that you actually read, make it this one. The Past is Red by Catherine M. Valenti. This book, it's so good. It's a novella based on a short story that she wrote a while ago. So the first half is the short story, and then the second half is like expands upon what happened after that short story. And it is so good. It's about a future where the oceans rose and people are living on what became of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and they've divvied it up so that all of the trash is in different little sections. It's so fun. Like, Valenti plays with this so well. And the main character does something horrible that everybody hates her for, but she's kind of self-righteous about it. And just the world building is so fun. The character is great. If you've ever read anything by Catherine M. Valenti, you know that her writing style is just delightful. It is so fun to me. And I had a wonderful, wonderful time reading this book. This is a book, it's like 110 pages, it's real short, that I could have read in one sitting, but I purposefully was like rereading paragraphs and reading really slowly because I wanted to spread it out over a couple of sessions, because I just wanted to keep being in that world, and I knew it wasn't going to last very long. So The Past is Red by Catherine M. Valenti. This is kind of weird. I don't read very much nonfiction. I think I read 3 or 4 nonfiction books this year, but I find it hard to rate them because I don't read them, so I gave 2 of them 5 stars. I'm just gonna give them a brief little mention here because this is mostly about fiction. But the first one is Because Internet, which is about internet linguistics, and it's so good. It's fun, it's interesting. As somebody who is interested in linguistics and spends a lot of time on the internet, it's wonderful to see that somebody is actually studying this, that somebody is taking the time to analyze it. And the other book is Entangled Life, which is about fungi. And it's really interesting. At one point, the author takes LSD to try to envision a being, a fungi, and spreading out in multiple directions at once, each with its own consciousness. And that was so cool. There's a lot more to fungi than I thought there was. Okay, I finally read The Left Hand of Darkness, and I love Ursula K. Le Guin. I read all of her novellas and her short stories right here. And they're just so good. She's such a talented writer. And so I finally read my first Le Guin novel, and lo and behold, it was really great. Wow, I'm so surprised. The Left Hand of Darkness is a little bit outdated, but it's still really valid and really interesting, and I really liked the relationship between the characters and also the world building. I'm really excited to read her other novels in this universe. And last but absolutely not least is A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. You guys, this book is so good. It's so gentle. I read it in one sitting. It was like dead week and I was exhausted. And so I made myself a massive cup of tea and I crawled into bed and my roommate was out and I just sat there and listened to some classical music and read this book. And it is one of my favorite nights that I have spent this quarter. And I saw 13 shows. It's just a delightful book and it's incredibly soothing to read. I'm gonna give a special little shout out to my shortest and longest books this year. My shortest book was The Architecture of Loss by Julia Cho, which I read for class, but it was pretty good. It's a play. It was 53 pages. That's not very long. And my longest book was Gideon the Ninth at 512 pages. 512 pages of confusion and depression, my favorite book ever. Unironically, though. Alright, so those were my favorite books of 2021. Thank you for joining me. I hope that I will read some amazing books in 2022 and be able to talk to you about all of them. Please follow me on Goodreads. I will follow you back. I love seeing people's Goodreads. I love getting recommendations and just seeing what people are reading and what they're thinking about it. It's so fun to me. So I'll see you there. Alright, bye!